Hi, beautiful people. Welcome to the Fort Salem Library, where we read you your fanfiction. So sit down or don't, relax or don't, and enjoy these stories in a way you have not before. We at Fort Salem Library do not own Motherland Fort Salem or any of the related characters. The Motherland Fort Salem series is created by Elliot Lawrence and owned by Freeform. This story is a work of fanfiction and is meant for entertainment only. We are not making any profit from these stories. All rights of the original Motherland Fort Salem story belong to Freeform. We also do not own To Take Care of You or any of its original characters and storylines. We did, however, get permission from the author to read their story. This story was created and written by Lisbeth_1, and you can find the link in our show notes. This story is being read to you by Celine.
To Take Care of You, Chapter 1. So, how did it happen? The question had Telly rolling over onto her side to get a better look at Abigail, who had spoken. Abigail was hanging upside down off the edge of her bed, hair dangling dangerously close to the floor as she looked at Telly. How did what happen? Telly could feel Riel's bony knee pressed into her back from where they were both lying on the lower bunk, and she shifted forward an inch. "You and Sarah," Abigail said as if it were obvious. "How did that even happen?" Telly frowned, her drunk mind trying to process Abigail's words. "I don't understand what you're asking." "Who put the moves on who?" Riel's blunt voice came from behind Telly. "I'll bet it was Sarah. You'd be too much of a chicken shit to make a move on the general tell." "Ray!" Telly tried to scold her sister, but it came out in a slow, drunken whine instead. She felt Riel press up against her, poking her in the side. "You telling me I'm wrong?" "About Sarah making the first move, or me being a chicken shit?" "Both." "Technically, Sarah did." "I knew it!" Riel crowed loudly in Telly's ear, causing her to wince. "The fuck does technically mean?" Abigail asked. She had sat up at this point, taking another swig from the bottle of wine they had been passing around. Telly's chest and face started to heat up, and she knew it wasn't from the alcohol. Every time she thought about Sarah and the beginning stages of their relationship, she would start to blush, remembering all the intimate and affectionate moments between them, all the sweet and nervous kisses they had shared. She was glad that Sarah was no longer confined to the safe house underneath Fort Salem, but she also couldn't help but miss the way things had been when they had that safe house all to themselves. A place for just the two of them and no one else. "Tally," Riel poked her in the side again. "Stop thinking about Sarah and start telling us about her instead." "Sorry," Tally bit her lip. She sat up in Riel's bed, propping her back up against the wall, and her head swam slightly as she did so. "You guys remember when you confronted me at lunch one day and asked me what I was hiding from you guys?" "Sure," Abigail shrugged. "That was when you told us you had a secret girlfriend." "Yeah. We actually weren't even together at that point." "Wait, what?" Riel laughed, sounding confused. "If you guys weren't together at that point, why tell us you had a secret girlfriend?" "And why did you react the way you did?" Abigail added with a laugh of her own. "Like you choked on your drink and everything. I'd never seen someone look so guilty." "Because I was very obviously thinking about what it would be like to be Sarah's girlfriend," Telly defended herself. Riel and Abigail both rolled their eyes. "Oh yeah, obviously," Riel quipped. "What does this have to do with Sarah putting the moves on you, though?" Abigail asked between taking drinks from the wine bottle. How she was still drinking at this point, Telly had no idea. "Well, when I went to see her later that afternoon, I told her about what happened with you guys and—" "Wait," Riel pushed herself up into a sitting position, eyes wide. "You told Sarah that you told us she was your secret girlfriend. Maybe you aren't a chicken shit." I didn't tell her that I said she was my girlfriend. I said that I told you guys that I had a secret girlfriend. Tally defended herself. Still, Rhea looked impressed. I think that technically qualifies as you making the first move. Well, now hold on. Abigail held up the wine bottle. Tell us the rest of the story, Tal. Tally's face was still warm. She basically asked me if the idea of having a secret girlfriend would be an unwelcome one. And that's how she asked you? Rael sounded unimpressed. You would think after 300 years that she would have a little bit more game. Abigail picks up her pillow and chucks it at Rael, as hard as she can. Let her finish the fucking story, shitbird. She turns back to Tally as Rael whips the pillow back at her, missing and throwing into the wall behind Abigail with a soft thump. So, what did you say? I didn't get a chance to say anything. I was just staring at her in, complete shock at this point, and then she started leaning in to kiss me. Tally's face goes even warmer. Oh, Abigail wiggles her eyebrows suggestively. How was it? Tally didn't think it was possible, but her face went even redder. She must look like a tomato at this point. I don't know, she said, earning a look of confusion from both of her sisters. I got nervous and ran out the door. Abigail's eyes bulged from where she was sitting on her bed, and for a few moments the room was completely silent, as both her sisters absorbed what she had said. Just as Tally began to think that neither of them were going to speak, Abigail let out a laugh that sounded more like a scream, and she collapsed forward onto her bed. The now empty wine bottle slipped from her hand as her body shook with laughter, and it fell onto the floor, rolling underneath her bed. You ran out the door? Tally whipped her head away from Abigail to look at Rael, who was looking at her in shock. The woman of your literal dreams leans in to kiss you, and you run out the door? Rael looked like she was very much trying to not laugh herself. Tally felt faintly like she might black out, the alcohol and constant blushing getting to her. I panicked, okay? She sputtered drunkenly. I can't breathe, Abigail said. She was lying on her back, looking up at the ceiling and wiping tears of mirth away from her eyes. Oh, Goddess, I can't breathe. Are you gonna let me finish telling you the story? Tally snapped. Goddess, Abigail gasped, sitting up. You fucking ran out. She stifled another laugh, clearing her throat. Continue. Tally glared at her, but the smile on Abigail's face never left. Anyway, once I left the house, all I could think was, what the hell did I just do? So I ran back inside and kissed her. You probably gave that woman a fucking heart attack, Tally, Rael said. What would you think if you went to kiss someone and they ran out the fucking door? There was a loud snort from across the room, and Abigail clapped her hand over her mouth in a futile attempt to hold back her laughter. Without warning, Tally lurched herself off the bed, swaying slightly as she headed towards the shared closet. Rael sat up completely in bed. Tal, what are you doing? I'm going to go kiss Sarah, so that she knows I want to kiss her, the drunk girl said simply. Tally? Rael rolled her eyes, glancing at the clock on the nightstand. It's almost 1 a.m. She's probably sleeping. Tally leaned down to pull on her boots, falling forward into the door jamb of the closet as she did so. Ow! Tally? Rael said more insistently. It's late, and you're drunk. You can't go walking across space just to kiss your girlfriend. I'll sleep with her too. Fucking TMI! Abigail shrieked, retrieving her fallen pillow and throwing it at Tally. The pillow bounced off of Tally's chest as she straightened, and she blinked slowly. Not like that, she giggled drunkenly. Well, maybe. She grabbed her coat from the hanger and slid it on, shuffling over to the door to the dorm. Tal! Rael leapt out of bed and ran over to her, grabbing her by the arm. You can't go across space in the middle of the night by yourself. Not while you're drunk. Sarah will kill us if anything happens to you. Hell, she'll kill us if she finds out that we even let you go. So, come with me. I'm too drunk to do that, Abigail hiccuped from her bed. Tally, Raelle said her name with a groan. It's late and it's cold and I'm going whether you come with me or not. So if you don't want Sarah to kill you, you better come along. Tally and Raelle stared at each other for a few moments before Raelle let out another, much longer groan and threw her head back in defeat. Fine, let me get my jacket. There was a gentle knock on Sarah's bedroom door, and she sat up slightly in bed, certain she had misheard. Another knock sounded, a little more insistent this time, followed by the unmistakable sound of muffled whispers coming from the other side of the door. Sarah's frown deepened, and she slipped out of bed, bare feet, padding against the soft carpet. She slowly opened the door and was greeted by the sight of a red-faced Raelle collar, uniform jacket and boots hastily thrown over pajamas, supporting a similarly dressed Tally. "Is everything all right?" Sarah asked, looking back and forth between the two of them. "Yes, ma'am," Raelle said quickly. "And I am so sorry to bother you in the middle of the night, but—" "Hi, Sarah!" Raelle's mouth snapped shut, and both her and Sarah turned to look at Tally, who was grinning widely at Sarah, swaying slightly from where she was leaned up against Raelle. "Hi, darling," Sarah replied. She then frowned again. "Are you drunk?" Tally shrugged her shoulders. "Maybe just a little," she slurred. "As I was saying, ma'am," Raelle interrupted awkwardly, "I'm really sorry to bother you, but we were just celebrating midterms being over tonight and—" "Ray?" "She decided that she wanted to come see you, and I tried to stop her, but she kept insisting and I wasn't going to." "Raelle! Let her walk across base drunk in the middle of the night by herself and so—" "Raelle!" "What, Tally?" Raelle snapped, finally stopping speaking to look over at the redhead in annoyance. Tally swayed again slightly. "Can you let go of me so I can go kiss my girlfriend, please?" Raelle's mouth snapped shut with an audible click, and out of the corner of her eye she could see Sarah shift, the older woman clearing her throat. "I can take her from here, Raelle." Sarah's voice sounded odd, and when Raelle turned away from Tally to look at her, she was surprised to find that Sarah's face had become flushed in the low light, and she was very decidedly not looking at Raelle. "Yes, ma'am," Raelle said quickly. She untangled herself from Tally, and Tally grinned up at Sarah again as she stepped into the room. Raelle took off down the hallway, with barely more than a "Bye, Sarah," and Sarah reached around Tally, closing the door behind her. Tally immediately stepped into her personal space, wrapping her arms around Sarah's middle, and Sarah didn't hesitate to slip her arms around Tally in return. "Hi, darling," Sarah said again, much softer this time. Tally's eyes were glassy as she smiled at Sarah. "Hi! Did you really drag your poor sister across campus just to come see me?" Sarah's tone was teasing, but she couldn't help the fluttering in her chest that she felt at knowing Tally had wanted to see her badly enough that she forced Raelle Collar, of all people, out of bed in the middle of the night. "Yes," Tally giggled slightly, leaning her body up against Sarah's so that Sarah was supporting her whole weight. "I wanted to come see you." Her giggle turned into a slight pout. "I'm sorry I ran out the door." Sarah frowned, tucking some of Tally's hair behind her ear. "Ran out what door?" "In the safe house, when you first tried to kiss me." Tally was frowning now. "I panicked and I ran out the door, but I really did want to kiss you. I always want to kiss you." An affectionate smile tugged at Sarah's lips. "Why are you thinking about that now? I think it's fairly obvious that you're interested in kissing me." "Abigail and Raelle wanted to know which one of us put the moves on the other first." Sarah raised her eyebrows at this, but she didn't say anything. "And so I told them the story of our first kiss. And when they found out that I ran out the door, they lost their minds. Like, Abigail laughed so hard I legit thought she was going to throw up. And Raelle said I probably had to have given you a heart attack, and I started feeling really bad and I—" Tally was cut off from her rambling as Sarah leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss to Tally's lips. "Darling," she murmured softly against Tally's lips before pulling back. It's okay. While I admit at the time I was very confused and thought I had crossed the line with you, now Sarah sighed affectionately again, stroking Telly's cheek. Telly, I don't doubt your love for me, okay? That is not something that I have to do. Sarah knew she must have said the right thing, because Telly's frown melted away into a large smile, and her arms around Sarah's waist tightened as she leaned up and pressed her lips against Sarah's in a slightly messy kiss. Telly's mouth was already open against Sarah's, and when Sarah opened her mouth to meet Telly's and slip her tongue into Telly's mouth, she was met with the taste of a fruity, sweet wine. It was not a type of wine that Sarah liked to drink, preferring richer, oakier wines, but she still found herself enjoying the sweet tang that came with running her tongue along the roof of Telly's mouth and sucking on Telly's lower lip. Telly's hands slid down to Sarah's ass, and she pulled back with a gasp. "Do you like the way I taste right now, Sarah?" "Oh, darling, I always love the way you taste," Sarah purred, leaning in and pressing a kiss to Telly's cheek. Telly sucked in a sharp breath. "Maybe we could," Sarah hummed in disagreement against Telly's cheek before pulling away, only to be met with a disappointed look from Telly. "Why not?" "Because," Sarah said with a peck to her lips, "you are drunk. Incredibly so." "I'm not that drunk," Telly tried to protest, but Sarah shook her head. "You are," Sarah said. She unwrapped Telly's arms from around her waist, taking both of Telly's hands in her own. "Tomorrow," she said, gently lifting one of Telly's hands to press a kiss to her knuckles. "When you are sober." She lifted Telly's other hand and repeated the action. "I promise, I will do whatever you want me to." She smirked lightly at the way Telly's eyes lit up at her promise. "But for tonight, we will just sleep, okay?" Telly's nose scrunched up. "Fine," she conceded. "That's my girl," Sarah whispered affectionately, a smile spreading across her face. Telly freed her hands from Sarah's grasp and grabbed Sarah by the collar of her shirt, pulling her down for another kiss. "Yes," she whispered back when she finally let Sarah go. "I am yours." Telly let out a gasp of surprise as Sarah suddenly lifted her off her feet and began to walk them both back towards her bed. She gently set Telly down on the edge of her side of the bed and, to Telly's surprise, knelt down and began to unlace Telly's poorly laced boots. "I'm not that drunk that I can't take my own shoes off," Telly protested, but Sarah just cast a soft smile in her direction and continued with her actions. Once Telly's boots were off, Sarah stood, pressing a kiss to Telly's lips on her way up. "Can I have one of your shirts to sleep in?" Sarah arched a brow at her. "Am I going to get this one back? You've stolen 3 already." Telly grinned sleepily. "Probably not." Sarah huffed, only pretending to be mad, and walked over to her dresser. She pulled out an old shirt at random, a black t-shirt with lettering on the front and back that she didn't bother to read, and she handed it to Telly. Telly grinned again, shucking off her jacket and her own sleep shirt that she was wearing, and slid the shirt Sarah had given her over her head. The word U.S. Army were plastered on the front of the t-shirt in white lettering, and when Telly stood up and turned around to pull the covers back from the bed, Sarah's mouth went dry. "Oh." Printed on the back of the shirt she had given Telly, in the same font and color as the lettering on the front, was the name Alder. There was a fluttering in Sarah's chest, and her stomach felt as if it had bottomed out, like she had just jumped out of a bed and was suddenly free-falling through the air. Telly Alder. "Oh." Sarah's stomach swooped again as Telly crawled into the bed, and she rolled onto her side to face Sarah, completely unaware of what was happening. "Are you coming to bed?" Her voice was laced with sleep, and she fought back a yawn. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat, and Telly sat up, looking slightly less sleepy. You okay? Telly sounded concerned. Yes, Sarah said quickly. Her legs felt rooted to the spot, but she forced herself to walk forward, and she got into the bed with Telly, crawling into the warmth of the covers. Telly rolled over to face Sarah again, and she snuggled closer to her on the bed, tangling their legs together. "Thank you for taking care of me tonight," she whispered through half-closed eyes. "I know I was being drunk and silly, so thank you for putting up with me." Sarah hummed, pulling Telly closer and tucking her head into her neck. "You are fine, my love, I promise. Taking care of you is a privilege, and something I would gladly do all the time." "Wow, you're like all kinds of romantic, aren't you?" Telly murmured. "One would think you would know that by now," Sarah quipped teasingly, running a hand through Telly's hair. She felt Telly nuzzle into her neck ever so slightly. "I do know it." Telly's words were a vibration against Sarah's skin. "I just really like that side of you, and it always makes me happy that you like that for me." Sarah hummed again as she closed her eyes, feeling the tug of sleep in her head and the tug of Telly's love in her chest. "And only ever for you."
Please find the fanfiction you just listened to on Archive of Our Own and leave the author some love. Without them, this wouldn't be possible, and we want to thank them from the bottoms of our hearts for creating these amazing stories and keeping the show alive.